G'day, what did the F1 drivers drive to the Monza track for the Italian Grand Prix? A variety of cars, and you're about to find out exactly what they were, plus a few extra bonus cars. First up, let's go to the place getters, not the winners, of the Italian Grand Prix. Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri both driving the exact same car, and a car that we don't often see them roll up in, and that was an Alfa Romeo Q4 Stelvio. You remember that last year and years prior, Valtteri and Zhou would often roll up in these Alfa Romeos, the Stelvios, plus also the other one, what was that? Alfa Romeo Giulia. But not anymore for those guys. I'll get to them in just a minute. But it really irks me that the McLaren drivers don't drive in McLarens. I just think they're missing out on a huge opportunity because the Ferrari drivers do, and they're talked about both on this channel and elsewhere in the media. Perhaps we go straight now to Valtteri Bottas, who was in an Audi A8 Quattro. A couple of years ago, was it 2021, he rolled up in his own car, this AMG GT Black Series, which he drove from Monaco. And what is the drive? It's in the order of 5 hours and 20 minutes if there are no traffic snarls. And there will be a number of tolls to pay on the way. Zhou Guanyu, he had the Audi A6. A lot of the drivers were staying at the Hotel de la Ville, and that's a mere, 4.8 kilometres from the exit to the hotel to the swipe gates. And while I can't tell you all the drivers that stayed there, certainly the Ferrari drivers were there because I went down on one of the nights and interviewed a few of the people, and they had been waiting there for hours. Shall we go to the Ferrari drivers? Not just yet. We'll go to Fernando Alonso, yes, in an Aston Martin DBX, along with his teammate Lance Stroll. You might have seen that Oscar had a go at Lance in the post-race press conference, saying he was driving like it was his first go-kart race. Well, I actually got a message from Lance's trainer, Henry Howe, saying, I'm not sure what he's on about, and he sent me a link to a video which had some audio from Lance saying that at that particular time he was having an issue with his front left tyre and feared it may well indeed explode. Perhaps that explains that incident. For those of you wondering where these drivers park for this race, well, there is a car park probably about 100 metres from the swipe gates. A lot of the drivers, and in particular Ferrari and Mercedes, would be dropped off right at the swipe gates. There are some fences that would be open and they'd roll straight up and get out and have a maybe 10-metre walk to the swipe gates. But a number of them stopped and signed autographs. And I'll go now to the Ferrari drivers because that's exactly what both Carlos and Charles did. On several mornings. The first few mornings it was a rowdy rabble, and then for Saturday and Sunday they introduced this very simple rope which kept people back behind the line, and the drivers went to them, which is a lovely touch. Carlos arriving in a soft top, a Spider, a Roma to be exact, with a car full of people, and I can't see that it'd be too comfortable sitting in the back of that car. And he had the roof off on Sunday because it was hot. In fact, it was hot every darn day of that race. Charles Leclerc, on the other hand, was in a Ferrari Purosangue. Forgive me if that's not correctly pronounced. But on the Thursday, he came in with a police escort, a camera car in front, and it was quite a production. I imagine that was shown on TV on the Sunday with Karun Chandhok on Sky Sports. And once they got out and went into the paddock, somebody else grabbed that car and put it back in the driver's car park. Alex Albon was in an Audi A4 Quattro, and of his teammate Franco Colapinto in his very first F1 race, first of 9, certainly that he's guaranteed, I can't tell you, he was one of 2 that we just never saw in that car park. Adjacent to the F1 driver's car park is a car park for celebrities and other VIPs, and I couldn't believe this gorgeous orange Porsche GT3, a car that we don't often see in the driver's car park at Monza. Who was driving that? It was Alessandro Borghese. Now, he is a renowned Italian chef. He was at the track on the weekend, and he says of this car, it's like spaghetti with tomato sauce. I did catch Alessandro coming out of the FIA hospitality suite on Sunday. He was one of their guests. And online, I found this picture of his car as a cake. There was another equally impressive car next to it, and I'll come back to that in just a moment. But a reminder, my bucket hats are now back in stock. You can head to kimellman.com now to place your order, and if you buy 2, you get 20% off both. Getting back to the cars, Daniel Ricciardo and Yuki Tsunoda, as usual, in Honda Civic Type Rs. Daniel actually stopped for a young lady on the road in. The drive-in is through a park, which is quite beautiful. And you might have seen in my previous video, I stopped and had a chat with her. But this is the last time that we'll see the drivers in these cars because the likes of the Honda Civic Type Rs that these two were driving are shipped from one race to the next. And of course, the next time we head away, it's to Baku, where we don't need cars because almost all the drivers stay at a hotel either end of the track and they can just walk. And thereafter it's the flyaway races, so those cars will go back to wherever they have come from. We had Emerson Fittipaldi at the track, of course, a famed racer from years ago. His two grandsons are doing swimmingly well in motorsport, with Enzo racing on the weekend in Monza, chalked up a 10th in the feature race and a 7th in the sprint race, and overall in F2 sits in 11th position. What was he driving? I forgot to tell you what he's driving. He was in a Mercedes EQS 53, which is a very comfortable vehicle, and he was doing some speaking engagements over at the Champions Club on one of the days, talking to a very eager group of F1 corporates. I'd like to tell you that Max and Checo were in something amazing, but I can't. Well, I guess it's amazing if you like the Mustang Mach-E GT. It's the same model that they've been driving for a number of races with the exact same number plates, like a lot of these cars transported from race to race. Max was one of those drivers being dropped off at the swipe gates and making very quick entry into the paddock. And if you want an autograph or a selfie from Max, you'll need to be quite persuasive, quick, and lucky. Ford, of course, is coming into Formula One in 2026, and they're spending a lot of money at the moment looking to get their name out and be associated with Formula One. And this is one of those ways, with those drivers rolling up in those Mustangs. The arrival of Lewis Hamilton is always a heavily choreographed affair, especially in a place like Monza, where the crowds are thick and excited and exuberant. And he was dropped off at the swipe gates and made quick entry into the paddock. His car of choice was this AMG Mercedes. And it's quite funny when you're standing out the front of these swipe gates, you'll hear a whole lot of chatter start going on. You'll hear security people come out and get ready. Then Lewis's photographer might pop out there and his trainer. So you get some sort of advance warning in most cases. And then, of course, you get the police sirens. And I'll go back to the Ferrari drivers. They, I mentioned, had a police escort. But I did see on a couple of occasions Charles' own security man head out of the track, along the road, out of the park on his scooter. He was going back to the Hotel de la Ville where the drivers were staying, and he would actually be riding in front of the police back to the track. So if you ever see this man on a motorcycle, know that there's a fair chance that behind him will be a Ferrari driver. And his teammate George Russell was in a Mercedes GLE 63 S AMG. If you have one of those cars, you're driving the same car that an F1 driver drives to the track. But does he drive out of the track on Sunday night in this car? Most of them, no. Somebody else comes and picks up most of these cars and takes them to wherever they have to be taken to, while the drivers are picked up by a minibus and shuttled a short distance to the helicopter landing pad, where they head back to their private jets. Shall I tell you about Bernd Mailander's road car? It certainly was in better condition than the safety car he drove on Thursday. You might have seen my video already, where he put that safety car into the barrier at Parabolica. It's been a very popular video. And while I wasn't standing at that corner when the crash happened, my son Jace, who was in the media centre, quickly got onto me and said, "You need to get out to Parabolica for this crash." But this is his own AMG GT 63S. It's a car worth about 189,000 euros in Germany. That's for the 2024 model. He's done more than 200 races in Formula One as the safety car driver and has led 1,000 plus laps. Is that the most of any driver? No. Lewis Hamilton has clocked up over 5,000 laps in front, although Bernd has never scored a point. Nico Hülkenberg was again in a BMW. He's been in BMWs a couple of times this year, but there's a bit of a difference here because he's driving his own BMW. This X4, I believe it is, and he's made the drive from Monaco to the track, as I said before, just over 5 hours, on a good run. So I'm pretty sure he wouldn't be flying back by chopper and then private jet. He'd be driving back. Ferrari boss, was he in a beautiful Ferrari? No, he was in a Stelvio, an Alfa Romeo. Q4 to be exact. And the final two drivers are Pierre Gasly and Esteban Ocon, just in Renault Espaces. People movers. Comfortable people movers, but still.
A people carrier.
Oh, and I've got two extra bonus ones for you. Corinna Schumacher in this most beautiful Bentley Bentayga. Sells for around 280,000 euros in Europe. That's about 310 US if you're wondering. And it is a big car. A couple of you saying, why was she at the track when Mick wasn't racing this weekend? He wasn't in Monza. He was in the US at the Circuit of Americas in Austin, racing in a WEC Series race, finished 9th in a three-person team. But I did see that Corinna actually had a go back at James Vowles after James made a comment, I think innocently, about Mick not being special. In other words, no, he's not a world-class Lewis Hamilton, Max Verstappen type driver. He's good. They're all good, don't worry about that. But Corinna wasn't happy, and according to a couple of reports, had a go at James in front of some media. James did actually apologise to Mick, saying he didn't mean any disrespect by it, and James is pretty good at sorting things out quickly. And he's probably the most engaging of all of the team principals when it comes to social media. You might have seen the fact that he does those regular addresses to the fans on his social media channel. None of the other team principals do that. And one final car, Toto Wolff in this AMG 63, and also an electric scooter which he rides through the paddock. You know now what 18 of the 20 F1 drivers drove to the track, plus a few extras thrown in for good measure. Before you go and pick up one of these bucket hats from KimElman.com, I'll urge you to like this video please and subscribe. And for a whole lot of extra content and merchandise, this is where you need to look. Thanks for watching and stay passionate. G'day, you wondering what the drivers drove to the Monza Grand Prix? Well, I've got all the answers for you here. It's written on a spreadsheet. I'm going to go through them in just a second on a cold day from Western Australia.